Hi everyone, today I'm here to talk to you about the short report. So let's jump straight in. But before we get too far along, it's helpful for you to know where to find all this information. So like all of the other assessments, all the information that you can find is in the assessment information document. So make sure you're looking at that document when we are going through what to do for your short report. Now, the thing is, for your short report, in terms of when you go to the assessment information document, you'll see that there are quite a few things at the beginning of the document that are helpful for you to know. This is going to be things like what sort of referencing style you should do, what we say about artificial intelligence, and the late submission policy. So make sure, and this is for all of the assessment items, none of the assessment items are unique in that way. They all follow the same use of things for like referencing, use of AI, and the late submission policy. So making sure that you're checking that. Okay, so if we go down to the short report, what we'll see is that the short report, what you have to do is you have to pick one of two scenarios to do. So all of the specifics about things like what the word count is, when it is due in the term, make sure you're looking at the assessment information document and Moodle for that. So yes, what I'm saying is if you see something on this video, don't just take that as your source of truth. What you need to do is make sure, I'm just here to tell you about kind of what you need to do, not the specifics. The specifics you should definitely check Moodle and your current terms assessment information document for that. Okay, so there are two scenarios for the short report that you have to choose. The first one is debunking misconceptions and pseudoscience. And what this is about is it is about climate change. So things like what we want you to do is research the question, why are misconceptions about climate change so prominent, and what evidence is there for climate change and what can be done about it? So if we look at the assessment information document, all of the particulars about the format and the length and stuff are going to be there. But basically for this climate change one, what you need to do is briefly, and this is very briefly, discuss and describe the common climate change misconceptions. So misconceptions being, people think climate change is caused by something, but that isn't accurate. And so what do people think about climate change that isn't accurate? And then what you need to do is basically debunk that. Go and describe the evidence for climate change. You need to reference solar variability and the impact, if any, that solar variability has on climate. Now, the sun is quite constant, but it's not constant. And so this is what we mean by solar variability. Its output in terms of light and power is not necessarily constant. So you need to go and research this, what solar variability is and whether it has an impact on climate change. And then you need to explain how climate change is linked to a particular event or occurrence that has happened in a region of your choice. It could be like where you currently live, or maybe your hometown or something like that, if you're not from Sydney. Or you could pick, I've listed a bunch below in the assessment information document, so you can pick one of those as well if you're struggling for ideas. You then need to explain one or more possible scientific and or engineering solutions to climate change. So you can see what we're sort of going with the structure here. You sort of have this is kind of what people think about climate change. Oh, but here's actually why climate change is a thing. Here is an example of it happening in real life, linking to a specific event. Here's a solution to climate change. That's the structure. You need to also include a properly referenced fact or publication or result that is recent, so anything from January 2022. Also, you need to use appropriate referencing and not plagiarize. So that's the first bit. The second thing that you can pick is researching a new telescope or mission. So this needs to have begun collecting data in the last 5 years. So that means the thing could have launched earlier than that, but it needs to have begun collecting in the last 5 years. And what you need to do is describe the scientific background or the thing that places that mission or telescope into context. So typically what happens is a telescope or a mission will be designed because it's supposed to, there's like a big gap in knowledge and it's supposed to answer questions within that gap of knowledge. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to explain where this fits into our current, I guess, things that we don't know about astronomy. Where does this fit in? What are the specific aims? Because sometimes the gap is so big that it won't fill that gap entirely. It's just there to answer specific questions or specific aims. So making sure that you're mentioning those as well. You need to summarize the data that has been collected by it already or that will be collected by this telescope if it's very new and it hasn't begun collecting data. Explain how it's going to contribute to scientific knowledge. So this is relating to the aims and how it's going to try and fill this gap in scientific knowledge. Again, another recently published fact and doing all the appropriate things like referencing and not plagiarizing. So in terms of the actual criteria, what you can see is we're looking for a good amount of quantity and quality and accuracy of scientific content. These are all out of 10 as opposed to, it says here 5, but if you look at the little footnote, it says that these are actually judged out of 10, these first two criteria, because they're very important. Quantity of science, like you really need to focus on the science. Don't be concerning yourself with too much with stuff that's outside of the science. Okay, as I was saying before my camera died, we ask you to talk about misconceptions, but then don't spend heaps of time on it. So that's what we're looking for. Structure and references is just making sure that you're referencing in the correct style that we want you to reference, and also that we want you to structure it in a way that is logical. It doesn't have to be like any particular style. We don't really care about that, but yeah, it just needs to be in a style that makes sense and is logical. It also needs to not be too much over the word limit. There is no like buffer or anything. It's as soon as you're over, you lose a mark for being less than 10% over. So make sure you're under. Having said that, the word count is as shown by Word, and it includes everything. But yeah, it's as shown by your word processor. So yeah, so that's what you have to do for the short report. I hope you enjoy looking up something and researching a little bit on it. If you have any questions, please just ask them. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you online.